welcome to this video. I'm Ellen. I'm here to wrap up my months of June and July and talk about the movies that I watched. And I watched a good amount of movies. Lately I haven't been watching a lot of movies just because obviously movie theaters are closed, so not a lot of movies are coming out. And I've been focusing more of my time on reading books. So if you want to hear about those, I do have a book wrap up where I talk about all the books I read in June and July. And there's a lot. But thankfully I've gotten back into watching movies, so I have some movies to talk about. But first I want to start off with talking about the statistics for both months because I love stats. So for June I watched a total of 6 movies. 3 of them were directed by males and 3 of them were directed by females. 5 of them came out in 2020 and 1 did not. Ratings were not as all over the place as they usually are, but I watched 2 PG-13 movies, 2 PG movies, 1 TVG, and 1 TVMA. So the shortest movie I watched was only 89 minutes, and then the longest was 123 minutes. I watched a total of 616 minutes of movies, which averages to about like 20 minutes a day. I watched 1 sci-fi, 1 romance, 1 comedy, 2 documentaries, and 1 action. Now stars were definitely all over the place. I have 1 1.5 star, 1 2 star, 2 3 stars, 1 4.5 star, and 1 5 star, which is an average of 3.2, so that's not that great. I like it to be above 3.5. So now for July I watched 8 movies. 7 of the movies that I watched were directed by males and only 1 was directed by a female. I watched 4 that came out in 2020 and 4 that did not come out in 2020. Now here we have ratings all over the place. I have 1 G-rated movie, 2 PG-rated movies, 1 PG-13, 1 R, 1 TVMA, 1 not rated, and 1 that's rated TV-14. The shortest movie that I watched was 90 minutes, and then the longest was 160 minutes, which is a very long movie. So total, I watched 906 minutes of movies, which averages to about 29 minutes a day. I watched 1 biography, 2 comedy, 1 documentary, 1 drama, 1 fantasy, and 2 romance. Stars were also not too great. I watched 2 1 stars, 1 3 star, 1 3.5 star, 3 4 stars, and 1 5 star. And it looks like Ellen forgot to do the average. So editing Ellen, we'll just do the math and put it here. That's it for stats. Now we're finally on to talking about the movies. And I think I'm gonna start with talking about the documentaries that I've watched, because that's a thing I've been trying to do this year, trying to watch at least 1 documentary each month. Documentaries have not been going how I wanted them to go. Lately I haven't really been liking them. So far there's only been 1 that I've watched that I've really liked, and that's one I'm going to talk about, and I'll start with that one. And that is 13th. I absolutely loved this documentary. It was fantastic. This came out back in 2017. I had never even heard of it. I wish I had, but I'm glad I watched it when I watched it. It's really, truly phenomenal. So 13th is about racism in this country and how it really hasn't gone away, and they mainly focus on the prison system and how completely messed up it is. So if you want to learn what's going on in our country and why so many people are fighting for Black Lives Matter and just, you know, what the whole movement is about, I definitely recommend checking this out. I feel like everyone needs to watch this because we can't move past this and we can't move forward and we can't fix the way this country is unless we know what's actually happening. And I believe you can still watch it for free on YouTube, so that's a plus. It's also available on Netflix. It's a lot of places for you to watch. The editing is really great with this. It has really great like attention to detail, and it's organized very well between footage and facts and then like talking heads with interviews and stuff. I feel like that was done absolutely perfectly. It's very well researched. They definitely did not hold back with all the information that they were giving you, and it was very educational as well. There were a lot of things that I did not know, and they're kind of heartbreaking and very hard to hear, but they're things that are true, and they're the things that we definitely need to know about so we can fix them. So it is very eye-opening, but it is also very necessary. And I was horrified, but also very engaged the entire time. I really loved it, so I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next documentary that I watched was Becoming. This, I had no idea was happening until I went onto Netflix and saw it was there. And I was like, cool, fun, I'm gonna watch it. I like Michelle Obama. She came out with a book called Becoming, which I still have not read, but I do own it. The book is literally just like a story of her life. From growing up, meeting Barack, starting a family, becoming the first lady, and all the struggles and deals with that. So it's definitely a book I want to read. I've heard nothing but fantastic things about it, but it looks like they turned kind of like the book into a movie. It's more of like you follow her book tour. So you definitely have moments where it's just like her kind of like behind the scenes, but then you also have her with her interviews at her book tour. There's also, you'll see her with like children, like talking with children and the youth and young adults and teens and whatnot. Now Michelle Obama, she's a wonderful human being, and I love the way she speaks so eloquently. Why can't I say I don't speak eloquently? There we go, that's the word. She does. I could listen to her talk all day. And she has some really great like little nuggets of wisdom in this, but overall I did find the documentary just a little bit boring. I actually preferred watching her interviews rather than all the behind the scenes stuff, like her getting her makeup ready, her having meetings, her like getting in a car and driving in a car. Like, I didn't really care for that stuff. I would have just preferred it to be her interviews with all these people at each stop of the book tour. But overall, I did enjoy it. It just didn't capture my attention as much as I wanted it to. But I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And then the last documentary that I watched was my least favorite documentary, I think, of all time. But it seems everybody else loves this. It has a very, very high rating on Rotten Tomatoes. All the ratings and critics and people I've seen like watch this and review it, they've all loved it. I did not like this. Granted, I did fall asleep, so I never even watched the ending of it. But that just shows how boring it was. But it was Apollo 11. It's a documentary about Apollo 11, the first mission to the moon, with Armstrong and all those guys going to the moon for the very first time and setting foot on it. And it's told through like found footage. It's all of like the footage of this whole thing happening, and then there's no real like narrator. It's just someone that's like working at NASA who's like talking and speaking all of the things that are like literally happening. It's like, okay, Neil Armstrong, we've got him over here. Okay, how's the thing going? How's the rocket doing? It was just kind of like, I don't know. It was so boring to me. I could not keep my eyes open. I never fall asleep during a movie. This, I think, maybe was the second time I have fallen asleep watching a movie. I mean, like, it's cool with all the found footage, I guess, but it wasn't enough to keep my attention, so I didn't like it. But hey, I think I'm the only person who didn't like it because everyone else gives it like 5 stars and freaking loves it. I don't know, but I gave it 1 star. So let's talk about some movies that came out in 2020. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Artemis Fowl. This one sucked. I was looking forward to this movie because I have heard great things about the book series. It is based off of a children's book series. I wish I could tell you what it's about, but to be honest, I don't actually really know what this movie was about. We have a little kid who finds out about the world of fairies and weird and interesting people. You see, I don't know. But he is trying to get his dad back. I think that's the main plot. His dad is gone. He's trying to either find his dad or take his dad's place. Yeah, I really don't know what this movie was about. It was very confusing. It wasn't well written. But I was looking forward to it. But then, of course, it kept getting pushed back because this was supposed to come out last year. And when movies get pushed back, it usually means it's not good. So they need like more time to work on it to try and fix it. I was hoping that wasn't going to be the case, but it was. Like, nothing about this movie was good. Very flat acting, really bad writing, like I said. The CGI also wasn't really that great. There was like that one scene where Josh Gad, I think he just like is eating dirt, and like it was so weird. The way he just like opened his mouth like super big, like that CGI was odd. I also just found it to be an odd choice of, I don't know, it was just really odd. I didn't really feel like there was an ending. It just felt like the movie was all exposition. It was all just like world building, and it was all like just starting a story. And then by the time we got to the end, I was like, wait a minute. That's how you're gonna end this right at the action? So it's like, I feel like they definitely want to do more movies, but after this, I'm like, no. What I will give it, because I do like Kenneth Branagh as an actor, as a director, and he directed this. What I like about his directing is that it usually does look visually very good. CGI aside, I thought it visually looked good. Like, I really like the cinematography and the scenery and the costumes. Maybe not all of the costumes, but overall it was just not great. I gave it 1.5 stars. Then I watched Feel the Beat. This was just a random movie I found on Netflix. I was in a mood, I think, just to watch like a silly movie. Not so much a silly movie, but like a typical rom-com movie. That's what I was in the mood for. And this was a new one that came out. And I looked at the guy and I was like, oh, he's real cute. I definitely am gonna watch this. And it was fun. It was cute. It wasn't great. It's one of those movies like, I'll watch it one time, enjoy it, and then that'll be it. I don't need to go back to it. In this we follow a woman who she's trying to become a famous dancer, I think like on Broadway or whatever, and she's going to an audition. It does not go well at all. And then she gets home, there's an eviction notice, so she has to move back home where she's from, which is like, it didn't say where exactly, but it's like some sort of like farm country area. And she ends up teaching these little girls at the dance school that she grew up with, teaching them a dance routine so they can go to this like big dance competition, and she can dance in front of very famous dance directors. I am great at telling stories. But the romance part of the story is her ex-boyfriend from high school still lives in the town, and his little sister is in the class that she teaches. So that's the premise. It's very predictable, but it is very funny and very cute at moments. And like I said, the male lead guy is very, very attractive. I liked him a lot. I really did not like the main character, though. I felt like she did not deserve a lot of the things that she got. Like, I don't think she deserved the guy. I don't think she deserved to... Yeah, I really didn't like her. She was like a stuck-up bitch. And also there were a lot of things that were hard to believe. They just seemed a little too coincidental, a little too over the top, but still enjoyable. But I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched, and it's a movie I have watched I think 4 times, and I still want to watch it again, and that's Eurovision Song Contest, The Fire Saga Story. The Story of Fire Saga. I loved this. Okay, so something, if you don't know something about me, I love Eurovision. I have watched it every single year since 2012. I'm one of those rare Americans who knows what Eurovision is and loves Eurovision. So when I found out, I want to say like 1.5 years ago or like 2 years ago, that Will Ferrell was making a Eurovision movie, I was so excited. In case you don't know, Eurovision is a song contest between all of the European countries. Not all of them, but most of them. Sometimes countries will opt not to participate that year for whatever reason. But they've been doing this since, shoot, I think it was like the 1960s or late 1950s. I think it was the late 1950s. I forget exactly what year. But it started like right after World War II. A lot of the European countries were like against each other, at odds with each other, So to kind of reconnect all of Europe, they decided to do a song contest, and there's gonna be no politics involved. Like, it was just a way to like bring the country back together through music. And it started off with I think just like 5 countries, and then now it's with pretty much every single country. They all compete, and it's this big spectacle every single year. But this movie takes place during a Eurovision Song Contest, and it follows Fire Saga, which is comprised of Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams' characters. They are a duo band, and they've been wanting to get into Eurovision for years and years and years, and it just hasn't happened until this year. And they are not great, but I will say their songs are very Eurovision, so I don't know how they didn't get picked before. But they go to the competition for Iceland, they get chosen for Iceland, and then they have to go to the big leagues, the actual Eurovision. And lots of hijinks happen. It's really, really fun. It's definitely a movie for fans of Eurovision because there are so many references that people normally wouldn't get if you don't watch Eurovision. This movie was just really, really, really funny. I was cracking up a lot of the times. The songs are fantastic. That last song that Rachel McAdams sings, even though I know it's not really her singing, but her character, that song that she sings, I get chills every time I hear it. It is beautiful, and I love when she sings in Icelandic. But all of the songs that are in this movie, like, they're definitely songs that would be in Eurovision. There's only one, I think it was like Sweden's song in the movie. I'm like, I don't think that's not really a Eurovision song. But I did love all of the songs. They're crazy and they're very big and whatnot, but like that's Eurovision. Oh, and there was one scene I was like screaming from excitement so hard, and that's the song-along scene. So many Eurovision legends in that scene were singing. Oh my god. I was like dying. I was crying from happiness because there were so many people in that scene that I love so much. Rachel McAdams' acting is so good in this movie. Like, yes, this movie is cheesy, but her acting kind of brings down the cheese and just, it's so good. There's that one scene where like after I think it's their second performance, and they had that like hamster wheel, which by the way, hamster wheel was a reference to a hamster wheel in a real Eurovision performance, where she like, when her and Will Ferrell having this fight, oh my god, so good. Her acting was so good. Also Dan Stevens playing a gay Russian, sign me up. He was so sexy in this movie as well. What I love is that, like, even though he's kind of like the villain, he's not really a villain. Being a Eurovision fan, I also noticed some things. Some of like the Eurovision rules didn't quite match with what was going up on the stage. Like, you're not allowed to have more than 6 people up on the stage, and there was a performance that had 7 people. Disqualified right there. Also, the voting for the semifinals, it's not how the voting goes. That's the voting for the finals. And then also, why is it taking place in the UK? UK never wins, so why is it being taken place in the UK? Also, I would have liked to have known who won Eurovision. They didn't really say who won, but I would have liked to have known. Either way, really loved this movie. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I was just talking about this movie for way too long. Another movie I watched was My Spy. This is another movie that kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. Like, this is supposed to come out, I think, beginning of last year, and it just kept getting pushed back, and I got so worried. I was like, oh no, this is not going to be a good movie. And it actually, not as bad. Not as bad as I was expecting it to be. I also thought this was going to be a kids movie, and I think it was supposed to be a kids movie, but it is rated PG-13, and I think it's because a lot of the curse words and violence, so it's technically not for kids. But I feel like a kid would have benefited from this story more. This movie, we follow an FBI agent. He's on a mission to search for a certain person, and this little girl catches them. And in order for her to not expose that they're FBI agents, she ropes them into like recruiting her and like teaching her how to be a spy. And it's really cute and adorable. It's very predictable and pretty standard for this type of storyline, but it's still very fun to watch. I do think the acting was good, and it's what I think made this movie like a decent movie. Overall, it's predictable and pretty standard for this type of storyline, but I found it very funny and enjoyable to watch, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next movie that I watched was Hamilton. Here's the thing, I'm not sure if I want to really count it as a movie or a musical, because it's literally just filming the musical. But I decided to just have it as a movie. IMDb considers it a movie, Letterboxd considers it a movie, a lot of people are considering it a movie, so we're counting it as a movie. Now here's the thing, I have listened to this album so many times. Like, I know all the words to all the songs. I've been loving this this music and this album since the musical came out, but I've never been able to see it in person, which has been so upsetting and frustrating. So I was very happy to see that it was coming out in a movie form on Disney Plus for me to watch, and oh my god, is it more incredible than I could have even imagined. There's this like whole new level that it brings when you actually watch it and you see it rather than just listening to the album. The acting is incredible. The choreography, stunning. Even like the sets and the costumes were great and really added a lot of like meaning to the story. I mean, like, even the editing of it was so good. And the way that it was filmed and shot, it's just, oh my god, it's so good. It's very, very emotional. I was crying a lot. Something too about like watching it, I never knew about the Bullet. There's literally a character who is the Bullet, and she has a lot of meaning throughout the entire story. I feel like I've been talking too much about movies, so I don't want to go on for too long, but I could go on for forever about this Hamilton. It's so good. Please do yourself a favor and watch this movie. Please watch it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next one I want to talk about is Desperados. This is a movie that came to Netflix, and it's a rom-com, so of course I'm gonna love it, and of course critics are gonna hate it. Just saying, a lot of people really did not like this one, but I quite enjoyed it. It's about this woman who falls in love with this guy they've been dating for a little while, and she's about to send him like this really nasty email because he's been ghosting her, but then right as the email gets sent, she finds out that he's been in a coma the whole time. So she goes to Mexico, which is where he is, to try and get into his computer and delete the email before he sees it. I did find it to be very funny. I was laughing at a lot of moments. I found it entertaining, and I thought the acting was good. The main character really did annoy me a lot at times. It's very unrealistic. Like, everything about this movie is unrealistic, but I also kind of didn't mind that. The dolphin scene, though, was a bit much. That was, I don't ever want to think about that scene ever again. Overall, I quite enjoyed it, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Another one I watched was Palm Springs. I had no idea what to expect from this movie. I thought it was going to be like a romance like a rom-com again. But it was so much more than a rom-com. This one was really, really good. You're mainly following the sister of the bride and the boyfriend of the maid of honor. I don't know how to explain it without giving things away, but I feel like it's okay if I give something away. This is not just a romance and a comedy, it's also a sci-fi. It's kind of like Groundhog Day. That's all I'm gonna say. I really liked the fact that I was surprised with what I got, and I do think it blends all those different genres together very well. It's very funny. I thought it had really good writing. I really liked the characters, and I thought the actors portrayed them well. I really enjoyed the romance. I do think the acting from the side characters was meh, but the main characters, it was really good. There was a scene that didn't quite make sense to me and didn't quite fit, and that was like the dinosaur scene, if you know what I'm talking about, if you've watched it. Like, that was like the one scene that just didn't really like fit with the rest of the movie for me. Other than that, really, really enjoyed this movie. I'm going to try to talk less and less about these movies so I can wrap this whole video up. But I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, and then the last 2020 movie that I watched was The Kissing Booth 2, another movie that people really didn't like. but I really enjoyed. After I watched it, I went and watched it again. So I really liked the first one, The Kissing Booth, that came out, was it last year? 2 years ago? Either way, I liked it. Was not expecting there to be a second one, but I'm not mad that there is a second one. And I understand the reasonings why people don't like this movie. I get it, I see it, but I am literal trash for this series, and I'm happy there's a third one. I don't know, actually. I mean, like, I like watching these movies, but I also don't think a third one is needed, but sure, go ahead. So is this movie over the top? Yes. Very much yes. There's definitely one scene that comes to mind with how over the top it is, and that's like one of the opening scenes with Elle as she's looking at a video of this really hot guy working out, and like, yeah, that was, and then her friend's like literally parkouring down the halls to her. Also over the topness, that scene between her and Marco, where it's like a montage-y type scene with them dancing at the DDR. I really hate that, the way that scene was shot. Oh my god. Also, is the main character very sucky? Yes, she sucks. She is not a good person. But I have so much fun watching these movies, and I really actually quite enjoy them. The ending sucked for lots of reasons. One of the reasons is because the whole movie is supposed to be about, you know, her learning the fact that she shouldn't be lying to people. And we go through this whole movie where like she lies, or she doesn't, or she like withholds the truth, or like whatever. And then at the very end, she still lies. And I'm like, that was not, there was no character growth there. Another reason why I thought it sucked was because I love Marco. I have fallen in love with Marco so much. But they did his character dirty in the end. I don't like the fact that they've made him this person who is trying to break up a relationship. So I'm gonna say, I feel like I kind of ruined the ending a little bit by saying that, but I love Marco. But I also really do love Noah. I think her and Noah have really bad communication skills, but I think they're meant to be. Sometimes the writing was a little bit bad with this movie as well, but overall, I can't help it. I really, really enjoyed my time and had so much fun watching this movie. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Now for some movies that did not come out in 2020, I've got Ashes in the Snow. This is based off of a book that I actually read, which is, so you can see that in my reading wrap-up, which is called Between Shades of Grey. It's by Ruta Sepetys. This is a historical fiction that takes place during the 1940s, during Stalin's reign. It was also kind of like around World War II, and Stalin took over Lithuania, Estonia, and one other country that I am missing, I'm forgetting, and I'm so sorry. But we follow Lena, who is from Lithuania, and the Soviet police come and take her brother and her mother and her father as well, but they get separated from their father. And they take them to labor camps. I do think, however, it is a good book to movie adaptation. I think they did what they could, but it's kind of hard to capture that essence that the book has. I can't explain it. There were some things that they added that I liked and some that I didn't like, mainly with one character, Officer Gretzky. In the book, he's not so much a main character. He's just kind of like off to the side, and you don't really know a whole lot about him, and you're just kind of like confused about, is he on the good side, is he not, what's going on, because he is one of the Soviet officers. But in the movie, he becomes a main character, and you see a lot more of him, which I kind of enjoyed, because I liked the character development with him. I liked seeing him, you know, struggling with the fact that, you know, he's a good guy, but he's being forced to be a Soviet officer, and he doesn't want to do these things, but he is forced to have to do these things. And you see how that just kind of like eats away at his brain, and you see him start to like become more and more of a Soviet officer, and then you also see his conscience eat away at his brain at that, which then made the ending like even more powerful. But I just didn't like some of the other things that they did with this character, especially with Lena's mom. I don't like how they did that. I also really wanted more from the side characters because there are a good amount of side characters in the book, and we see a lot of them and we get a lot of like their dialogue and we get a lot of like an emotional connection with them, but in the movie they're like barely there. So I didn't like that. I would have liked more from the side characters. Overall, I still enjoyed the movie, but it's not one that I'll like watch again. But I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Another movie I watched was Hugo. This was a movie I've been dying to see because I read the book The Invention of Hugo Cabret last year. It made my top 10. I really loved that book a lot. So I was really excited to see how the movie was going to be done. And I do think this as well is a good book to movie adaptation. I thought it did a really great job of like taking the tone from the book and transferring it to the movie. This movie, by the way, is definitely a movie for film lovers, especially like old-timey films, like films from the 20s and the 30s. And it's just also like about film preservation and trying to preserve the art form of film and how it has progressed. But we mainly follow this little boy, Hugo, and he's trying to build a robot. Not build it, but he's trying to fix this like robot that him and his dad found. He also lives and works in a train station. He like lives within the walls because he fixes all the clocks. But he also steals, because you know he's a kid, orphan, so he does steal from a lot of the vendors within the train station for food, but he also steals a lot from the toy maker because he needs parts to help fix the robot. But it's so much more than just that story. There's a whole lot of like side characters, which I really loved seeing these little like side characters that he watches in the train station. I really love this story overall. I think it's such a fantastic story and it's so beautiful. The acting is really good. The only thing is I do think that the people playing the children are a little bit too old for the characters, because I think they're supposed to be like 13, 14, but they look like they're 18 or 19. And it's just like, okay. I really did like this movie a lot, and I think it was a really great translation from book to movie. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then the last movie I want to talk about, I'm going to be ending it on a bad note, but to be honest, I was in the mood to watch a really cheesy bad movie, so that's why I chose High Strung Free Dance. This was not a good movie at all, but again, that was what I was in the mood for. It was what I wanted at the time. But yeah, no, it's not good. The acting is really not good. The writing is so bad. Like, this whole storyline is just not good. I didn't care for any of the characters. The only part of this movie that I really liked was like the last like 20 minutes, which is just the dance show. So this is a movie, we're following a girl. She's a dancer. And she got cast in this Broadway show, which is another thing that like kind of bugs me, because I'm like, this is just a dance show. This isn't something that would be on Broadway. Maybe it'd be off Broadway or like something else, but it wouldn't be Broadway. But it's just a dance show. And she gets a part in it. She starts falling for the piano player, but then she also starts dating the lead guy. And there's like that whole like triangle romance or whatever. So the last like 20 minutes of the show, or of this movie, is just the dance show. And the dance show was so good. I was like getting chills watching it. And I was like, if this was just the dance show, 5 out of 5. I would have loved to see this like dance show live and in person. It was so cool, and the music was really good, and the choreography was really good with it. And I love their use of props in the dance show. But it's not just the dance show. It's only 20 minutes, and then the rest is a crappy story that I really didn't care about. So I gave this movie 1 star. And that is it for my movies. That's all I've watched. You can also check out my book wrap-up, as well as just like my life wrap-up for the months of June and July. They'll be linked down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys with more videos.